I invite you to think about your favorite outfit that you have ever worn. Maybe it was what you had on for a major life event, like a wedding or a graduation. Or maybe it was an outfit that you just felt really great in, say last Tuesday. As I think about my favorite, I know I should probably choose my wedding dress, but there's another white dress in my history that I loved most of all. It was a knee-length number with cap sleeves, a tulle skirt, and little pearl buttons from the collar to the hem. It was my first communion dress. I was 6 years old, and I was obsessed. I could not wait to wear it, along with my new white tights, white Mary Janes, and, well, it was the 1970s, so there was a headband of fresh flowers, too. My equally excited friends and I had a sleepover just to admire one another's dresses ahead of the big day. According to Roman Catholic tradition, we had reached the age of reason, and so it was time to get ready for the sacrament of bread and wine. But before I could wear my awesome dress, which was clearly the most important thing about receiving communion for the first time, I had to make my first confession to the priest. This was terrifying. The priest was nice enough. Father Bob looked a lot like John Denver and wore tie-dyed vestments, but the prospect of having to confess my sin brought up a new feeling for me. It was the feeling of shame. I was scared at the thought of being exposed as a bad person. All these years later, I now find the rhythm of regular confession quite powerful and healing. As a child, though, all I heard was that there was something wrong with me. I remember kind of freezing when it was my turn. I made up something innocuous about hitting my older brother or something like that, and the priest smiled kindly and told me to say some prayers. It was easier than I thought it would be, but that first feeling of shame stayed with me. We all have those moments when shame is sharp, as children and adults. Shame is more than the worry that we've done something wrong or bad. Shame tells us that we are something wrong or bad. Shame is a loud and powerful voice that tells us we are not good enough or lovable enough for any number of reasons. Religion can be the worst purveyor of shame, especially when one is told in God's name that you are unacceptable by virtue of who you are or who you love. Now, there is secular shame too. Shame is a currency we spend against ourselves and against others, and it's very convenient for selling us products that will compensate for our inadequacies. The French philosopher Michel Foucault argued that we live under a complex and oppressive system of shame, which functions to keep us submissive to dominant power structures. Now, that's heavy stuff, but one of the basic takeaways is that shame is something every human experiences and carries around. You could even say it's a pandemic. Why all this talk of shame, you ask? In Luke's Gospel, Jesus has just given us what sounds like a standard list of good Christian practices: loving our enemies, blessing those who curse us, offering the other cheek, giving to those who beg from us, giving our shirt to the person who takes our coat, and the ultimate summary statement: do to others as you would have them do to you. We could easily see this simply as a list of good works. But this is part of Jesus' Sermon on the Plain, which is about something far more radical than good behavior. His list is about shame and how to get rid of it. Take turning the other cheek, for example. This expression is not exactly what we think it is. Scholars suggest that Jesus is describing a scenario about power and shame here. If someone more powerful than you hits you across your face with the back of his hand, and then you offer your other cheek, he has to hit you with an open hand in the other direction and see your face. According to first century rules, by doing this, you are claiming to be an equal to the one who thinks they are more powerful than you. Likewise, Giving your shirt to the person who takes your coat is about changing the dynamics of shame and power. Say a tax collector not only takes your money, but also your coat. Jesus says, keep going, strip down. By those same set of cultural rules, nakedness isn't just shameful for the one who is naked, it's shameful for the person who beholds your nakedness. In a society steeped in an elaborate system of shame and honor, Jesus is showing a way to reverse that system and rob shame of its power altogether. Now, it's one thing to look at first century Palestine and see how shame and honor worked in that culture. It's a lot harder to be aware of those same dynamics in our own because shame is literally everywhere. Society tells us that there is shame in being everything from hungry to hated, poor, lonely, rejected, or different. Sometimes religion preaches that message. We all get caught up in feeling shame and in shaming others. Jesus insists on ending that once and for all, showing us time and again that grace is far more powerful and inviting his followers to live into that truth. Shame has no place in the kingdom of God. Now, I recall the first convention of the Episcopal Church in Arkansas that convened after the COVID-19 pandemic had started. Surely that 150th convention on Zoom could not have been more different than the first one in 1872. And yet, the task was the same. We gathered to affirm the presence of our Christian witness in Arkansas and to plan its future. On Zoom, our bishop named that there is fear about the future, both as a society and as a church. We worry about what the church will look like in the years to come, as so much seems to be changing. He reminded us that fear is never the end of the story for Christians. While the pandemic was scary and an isolating time, things like shame thrived in isolation. We are emerging now into a new future. We've learned so much, including that we need more tangible community and deeper connections, whether we're longtime Christians or brand new ones, or people who have yet to hear some good news. That's an exciting call for the church, whatever it will look like. Thinking back to your favorite outfit for a moment, there is another garment to consider. Whether or not you have one hanging in your closet, there is a garment that we share as followers of Jesus. In early descriptions of holy baptism, we know that new converts were given a simple white robe to wear, which symbolized putting on the robe of Christ. It signified a fresh start for the newly baptized, now free of past sin and shame, and dressed in freedom and dignity. Offering that robe to all who need it is at the heart of the church's mission, serving as an antidote to our pandemic of shame. And there are plenty of robes to go around.